The top story of the day. A massive centre versus state row has erupted after the centre, in an unprecedented order, asked the Chief Secretary of West Bengal to report to the North Block by 10 a.m. on the 31st of May. This move by the centre comes after a row over Mamata Banerjee skipping a cyclone assessment meeting with the Prime Minister on Friday. The Chief Minister did, however, meet the PM and hand over a report on the damage caused by the cyclone Yas. The Trinamool Congress has now accused the centre of misusing its powers after being unable to stomach its defeat in the acrimonious Bengal elections.
It's a political vendetta. If Prime Minister tell me, you touch my feet, I will help Bengal, that also I am ready to do. Every time you are going for confrontation, I give my...
No letdown in hostile politics between the centre and state. After an acrimonious election and a row over the arrests of senior TMC leaders in the Naroda case, the latest flashpoint. The centre asking the Bengal Chief Secretary Alapon Bandopadhyay to report to the Department of Personnel and Training Office in North Block in the national capital. The move comes as the Chief Secretary is engaged in managing the COVID situation and the aftermath of Cyclone Yas that caused widespread damage. And 4 days after his tenure was extended for 3 months by the centre on the request of the state government. On Friday, the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee met the Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Kolaikunda Air Base as he arrived in Bengal to take stock of the damage caused by Cyclone Yas. But Mamata Banerjee skipped a detailed meeting later that involved the Governor and Leader of Opposition Shubhendu Adhikari being present.
She came there simply to brief him for about 15 minutes and then went away without attending the meeting. This, I believe, is one of the most serious case of insulting the Prime Minister of India.
Mamata Banerjee says she asked Prime Minister Modi for permission to leave 3 times and left to survey areas affected by Cyclone Yas along with the Chief Secretary only after obtaining it. The centre's orders recalling the Chief Secretary came soon after.
Well, this is not the first time. Even in December last year, the centre had issued orders directing 3 West Bengal cadre IPS officers to report to the centre. But this time, the Chief Secretary of West Bengal has been recalled by the centre without consulting the state. In all likelihood, this matter will reach courts soon.
Mamata Banerjee's bête noire, Shubhendu Adhikari has accused Mamata Banerjee of insulting Bengal with her actions, and Mamata Banerjee has accused the BJP of the same.
পশ্চিমবঙ্গ সরকারের মাননীয় মুখ্যমন্ত্রী এবং তার মুখ্য সচিব সহ আধিকারিকবৃন্দ যেভাবে প্রধানমন্ত্রীকে এবং ভারত সরকারকে অপমান করেছেন এই নিন্দার কোনো ভাষা নেই
Why? In Gujarat last week you went there. Why you not called opposition leader there? It is your state. Even Odisha also opposition leader was not there. In my state, whenever you come, you create some confusion and always you create some confrontation. Why? And I mentioned 3 times, sir, with your kind permission, may I leave? Along with my secretary. Sir, with your kind permission, may we leave? Sir, with your kind permission, may we leave? After that, we went to Digha and we convened meeting and all this.
The last has not been said on this issue, and the Trinamool Congress says the treatment meted out to Bengal's Chief Secretary is an insult to IAS officers across the country. Mamata Banerjee is backing her Chief Secretary for now, but the matter is clearly political. While the BJP continues to target the Trinamool Congress, the Trinamool Congress harps on the fact that the centre is misusing its powers because the BJP hasn't been able to accept the fact that it lost badly in Bengal to the Trinamool. With Arvind Mayaram in New Delhi, in Kolkata, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
So petty politics in the time of a pandemic? In the midst of a pandemic, we're in the middle of a horrific pandemic. Over 3,000 lives are being lost a day. Can we afford to have such an acrimonious centre-state tussle? Joining us now, Riju Datta, spokesperson of the TMC. We have Mr. PKD Nambiar, he's a political analyst who supports the BJP, and Arvind Mayaram, former Finance Secretary of the Ministry of Finance at the Government of India. So, Mr. Nambiar, to you first, the key words that Mamata Banerjee spoke today that stand out the centre is not letting the state work. PKD Nambiar, we are in the middle of a horrific pandemic. 3,000 lives are being lost a day. Mamata Banerjee says, don't indulge in dirty tricks out of a political vendetta. Allow us to work for cyclone-affected people of Bengal on COVID. Is this not bad optics? At the height of a COVID pandemic, 48 hours after a state has been ravaged by a cyclone, why would the government, central government, recall a chief secretary?
Firstly, the Prime Minister did not go to Bengal for a tourist, not as a tourist. He went there to review the cyclone and to bring some kind of a relief to the people and review the situation. Mamata Banerjee should understand that West Bengal is a part of India. She is a chief minister, not a queen of, she is not a queen of Bengal. Secondly, today Mamata Banerjee has surpassed everything which has in the democratic value and the cooperative federalism structure in India, wherein she has redefined the word arrogance in the English dictionary. I believe the challenge of today is that Mamata Banerjee is still not been able to accept, despite her party came back to the power, she lost herself in Nandigram in a very bad way.
Mr. Nambiar, I'm sorry to interrupt you because you're not answering my question. The words that you're using, arrogance, ego, could the same not be said to the centre? My question is, why would you recall a chief secretary whose job it is to oversee cyclone relief, whose job it is to oversee the state's response to the spread of the coronavirus?
The government is not about one particular person sitting in one chair. The chair will remain there. Instead of him, someone else will come into that particular place. If the centre has all the right to call an officer or an IPS or an IAS officer anytime it feels, I don't think that it is not even required to justify to anybody why it is being done at any point of time. It's an officer of the central government. He can be called any particular time. That is one.
His tenure was just extended by the government just 4 days ago.
So what?
On the request of the state government. So
maybe you will be made as a managing editor of NDTV tomorrow, and the next day you will be asked to go off. Does that mean that everything is this thing? That is purely the.
Sorry, does that mean what? Yes, I would be very worried if that's the case.
That's precisely I wanted. That is purely the decision of the central government. So now the question is that why the kind of behavior which has never ever seen in the last 70 years of this in India, why Mamata Banerjee did like that. Insulting the Prime Minister is not about insulting
Fair enough. Unfortunately for the people of India, the same can be said of the centre. Unprecedented to see that a state secretary is recalled 4 days after his tenure is extended. Let me go across to Mr. Riju Datta. Mr. Datta, on the other hand, Mamata Banerjee's conduct is an unfortunate low, says the Home Minister. She's put arrogance above public welfare, says the Defence Minister, Rajnath Singh. Political differences being put above the constitutional duty of public service, says the Governor. Some strong charges here, Mr. Datta.
Sarah, I will only say, I do not understand where the Prime Minister was insulted in the first place. She met the Prime Minister. It was a review meeting. She met him. She gave the papers which were related to the damage and the destruction caused by the cyclone. She took his permission and she went for the review meeting. Is this the time, amidst this raging pandemic, with this destruction caused by this cyclone, is this the time for a chai pe chacha or chit chat? I think not. And regarding the recall of...
Mr. Datta, when the Prime Minister visits a state post-COVID, surely it is not equivalent to a chai pe chacha. It's not chit-chat, and certainly I'm sure Prime Minister Modi and Mamata Banerjee have nothing to chit-chat about. They would prefer not to, I think.
No,
this would have been...
the thing is, people are getting the wrong end of the stick. You have to understand that peddling fake news by BJP has become an infectious disease. When she met the Prime Minister also acknowledged the fact that she met the Prime Minister and handed over the papers, and you in your introduction showed that she met him for 15 odd minutes. BJP MP was making the statement. But those pictures are never made public. But when he sat with the governor and Shubhendu Adhikari and a couple of other ministers, again from BJP, even if they were in the capacity of central ministers, those pictures were made public with the empty chairs. What is
Mr. Datta, let us say Let us give the West Bengal Chief Minister and the TMC benefit of doubt. The BJP chose to have a bête noire sitting in that meeting. That was improper. That was just to rankle her, as they have done in the past with, Jai Shri Ram slogans, etc., etc. But she is the Chief Minister. And, politicizing all these matters, unnecessarily confrontational, a combative stance, was that necessary?
See, respect is a two-way street. You call my chief minister during Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose birth centenary and you insult her. You call her in a DM meeting where she is not being asked to speak or not allowed to speak for that matter, and you humiliate her. We are not doing a tit for tat here. But if we are respecting the chair of the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister also should have a courtesy of respecting the chair of the elected chief minister. The crux of the problem is, people of Bengal have given a very clear mandate after 18 roadshows by the PM and door-to-door campaign by the Home Minister. They cannot swallow this bitter pill. You swallow it, move on, we are there. Why are you, if you want to confront, you will get that. If you do...
All right, understood. This is the case of the pot calling the kettle black, the BJP doing to the TMC what the TMC is doing to the BJP. Unfortunately, it's the public that is going to pay the price. Can we afford this? My question again at the start, can we afford this? We're in the middle of a horrific pandemic. Arvind Mayaram, you've been in the hot seat. Where do you stand on this? Some strong words being thrown up by both sides. Arrogance of both leaders on both sides. Petty politics. Is it an unprecedented blow to federalism, or is this political impropriety on the TMC's part? What's your take on this?
So politically, whatever has to be said has been said by the two spokespersons who are here on your show. But let me just say two things on this. One is that the West Bengal Chief Secretary's transfer has been, as reported, been under Rule 6.1 of the Central All India Services Conduct Rules. Now, Rule 6.1 says a cadre officer may, with the concurrence of the state government or the state governments concerned and the central government, be deputed for service under the central government or another state government, etc. Provided that in case of disagreement, the central government shall decide and it shall be accepted by the state governments. Now, the first question here is, if Rule 6.1 has been used to recall the Chief Secretary, then the process has not been completed. The central government has to request the state government, seek its concurrence for the transfer of the officer. And as the civil services, All India services and other central services have constitutional protection, it is my understanding that if the sitting Chief Secretary of a state has to be transferred from that state, then there must be some overriding reasons to do that. And those reasons would have to be stated. Because I don't think any, in our constitutional structure, any government or any individual or anyone has unfettered authority without assigning a reason to do anything that they wish to do.
So you disagree, as Mr. Nambiar says, they don't have to give an explanation to anyone. That is not clearly not the case.
My understanding is that they
do have to give an explanation to the people of India, because the people of India have vote any government in.
Not just that, but while requesting for his transfer, they will have to justify it in government records why this individual is so critical for the central government, that despite his being the Chief Secretary, his services are required or necessary at the central government.
And at this point of time, and 4 days after his service was extended. So, Mr. Arvind Mayaram, the Prime Minister would be aware of this decision to call back the Chief Secretary, as in he would have to give the go-ahead on this?
Well, I would think so, because the Chief Secretary would be equivalent to Secretary in Government of India. And therefore, the DOP would send it to the ACC, that is the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, which is chaired by the Prime Minister.
And could you clarify for our viewers this whole controversy over the fact that the leader of the opposition was present in what was supposed to be a Prime Minister, Chief Minister's meeting, or at least what was told to the Chief Minister would be a Prime Minister meets the Chief Minister's meeting. Is that really inappropriate?
I would again like to bring to the notice of your viewers and to your notice, the constitutional structure of governance in India is very complex but very clear. There is a judiciary which is independent and autonomous. There is a legislature and there is an executive. Even though the executive comes out of the legislature, they have independent functions. Now, the leader of the opposition is part of the legislature. He or she is not part of the executive. Whereas the meeting between the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister is the meeting within the executive as defined by the Constitution. Therefore, in an official meeting between the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister, the presence of the leader of opposition would mean that the division of powers or the distinction between legislature and executive is getting blurred. And I don't think this has been done in the past, or it is the convention within the Indian democracy.
And it wasn't done when in the same meeting that took place with the Gujarat Chief Minister and more recently the Odisha Chief Minister. Though, let me ask you, in the meeting with the Odisha Chief Minister, Mr. Patnaik, we know that the Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan and Pratap Sarangvi also attended this meeting. That has been reported, and there, of course, BJP leaders from the state of Odisha. But lastly, let me ask you then, is it...
But Minister, you should remember, the Minister, Mr. Pradhan, he's part of the executive. He could be part of the central delegation. So there is nothing wrong with Mr. Pradhan joining this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a very important clarification there. Thank you for clarifying that. Lastly then, is it a protocol? Is it improper? Is it the norm that after you greet the Prime Minister at the airport, you have to attend or you should be attending this review meeting?
If the Prime Minister has invited the Chief Minister, yes, the Chief Minister should be attending the review meeting, because this again is the constitutional arrangement that the center and the state must work together. However, one must remember this, that it's a very delicate relationship between the center and the state in a federal structure which has a tilt towards centralization. Our constitution has a tilt towards centralization, but it still is a federal structure. So in a federal structure, it would have been perhaps the convention that when the Prime Minister is visiting the state, the Chief Minister is informed in advance and is requested that there is going to be a meeting, and the meeting shall be within the executive realm of the executive. And the Chief Minister should have attended the meeting. In my opinion, it is always good for the Chief Minister, even if there is a deviation at the level of the central government, the Chief Minister could have sat through it and then expressed her opposition to the manner in which it was conducted later.
But a complete lack of statesmanship from both our Prime Minister and the Chief Minister, possibly also in this case, seen over the last 48 hours in the state of West Bengal. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayaram. It was a pleasure having you on the show, helping clarify a lot of the confusion in this big story of the day. Thank you all for joining us. That's all we have time for.